This webinar is made possible by a project of the Environmental Finance Center Network, which I'll say more about in a moment, the network. And the project is Smart Management for Small Water Systems. The programs under this project, like this webinar, in-state workshops, direct technical assistance, which I'll talk more about in a moment too, are provided free of charge to all participants. Thank you to the generous funding of the United States Environmental Protection Agency under this grant. The EFC network includes environmental finance centers from different corners of the United States. Ours here at UNC-Chapel Hill, the Syracuse one where Laura works, and several other fine sister institutions around the country. Under the Small Systems Project, we're able to help small water systems, so those serving 10,000 or fewer people with their service population, in any of the areas you see on the screen here. And I think there's one new one that I didn't get onto this slide yet on climate adaptation. But there's also, and climate resiliency, I think is the word we're using. There's also asset management, energy management, access to multiple funding sources, water loss reduction, and so on. Today we're focusing in this area of fiscal planning and rate setting with the Massachusetts Water and Wastewater Rates Dashboard. And those of us here at the UNC-Chapel Hill Environmental Finance Center, we are dedicated in our work to the ability of governments and other organizations, like those of you who are on the call, to provide environmental programs and services in ways that are fair, effective, and financially sustainable, thus helping to protect the environment and keep the services going for the longer term. And as we like to say, how you pay for it matters. We also have been delighted to have the opportunity with the state of Massachusetts to work not only with the Department of Environmental Protection's Drinking Water Office and our very good colleague Michael Maynard and others from the state government there who've been very supportive, very involved in this project in the last year, but also to work with a really great firm, Ty & Bond, who did the rate survey. And you're going to hear about that in just a minute from Mary Beth Morris, who is the Vice President of Bond and has 30 years of experience in the environmental engineering field. Under her leadership, Ty & Bond regularly publishes comprehensive water and sewer rate surveys, both for the state of Massachusetts and Connecticut. And they started doing that in 1997, doing each state every 2 years. Mary Beth has worked as an instructor for the New England Waterworks Association's annual water rate making seminar program, focusing on the importance of selling your rates. Mary Beth has a Bachelor's of Science in Chemical Engineering and an MBA for the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, Massachusetts. And also want all of you to know here that this is her glorious debut, first time on the speaking side, the presenting side of a webinar. And thank you very much for making the time to join us here, Mary Beth, and tell us about the surveys and your company's good work.
Well, I thank you very much, David, for the opportunity, and hopefully everything will go smoothly with my first webinar. Just for those of you that aren't familiar with Ty & Bond, we are a Massachusetts-based civil and engineering firm that has been in business for over 100 years. As David mentioned, we started conducting our rate surveys in Massachusetts back in 1997. So we've been doing this for quite some time. We publish them every 2 years, and our last survey was done in late 2014, and that is the data set that David and his colleagues had used to develop the dashboard. So what we've done most recently is we typically send an online survey out to water and sewer systems statewide. This year, the Mass DEP assisted us to make sure that we had as widespread a list of companies as possible. So we collected the data. We also followed up with folks that we didn't get a response from by telephone, particularly folks that have participated in the seminar for a while, because we want to keep the survey as broad brushed as we can and try to cover as much as the Commonwealth as possible. We also refer to websites. A lot of systems, you'd be surprised at how many these days are putting their rates up on their websites because, you know, consumers are interested in that, in access to that type of information. And we also get some of our data from the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. They have actually been doing a rate survey for probably 25 or more years, and they actually were the reason we were inspired to do our statewide survey. Their excellent survey is great, but it only covered 40 or so communities in the Boston area, so we were looking to expand that and get some statewide coverage. So we've had positive feedback, and if we look at the next slide, we try to report out on various trends that we see. And as you can see from this bar graph, and we all know very well, folks' water and sewer bills have increased quite significantly in the last 14 years. As you can see from this graph, the wastewater rates are shown in red, and those generally are a bit higher here in Massachusetts than the water bills. And it seems as though the wastewater bills have been escalating a little bit faster as well. So what we try to do is we calculate an average annual homeowner's cost, and a lot of systems like to use this for benchmarking. It provides them with a useful tool. For example, if a particular system hasn't increased their rate in a number of years, they can show their ratepayers and their select board and other stakeholders, well, look, all of these costs have increased over time and other systems have been adjusting rates regularly. So it's something that you should do, and the extent, we know that our data has been helpful on a lot of occasions. If we go to the next slide, you can see there are some other pieces of information we like to extract from the survey and report. Folks are always interested in rate structures and how they can improve them. You can see from the pie charts here that the rate structures used in Massachusetts have changed dramatically in the last 14 years. Back in 2000, most water systems were simply billing one flat rate, you know, X dollars per 100 cubic foot or X dollars per 1,000 gallon. But over time, almost 2/3 of them now are doing an ascending rate structure, or otherwise some people call it an inclining block rate structure, where you actually charge a higher cost for higher consumption values in an effort to promote conservation. So that's just some of the trends we can show you from our surveys on rate structures. And if you go to the next slide, we also look at billing cycles, which have changed as well. Back in 2000, both water and sewer bills were usually either twice a year, biannually, or quarterly. Now we're seeing that they are predominantly sent out on a quarterly basis. Almost 60% of them are doing quarterly bills, and now we even measure some, it's about 8% actually send out a bill every month to their residential customers. So if you'd like to access our rate survey, you haven't seen it already, you can go to our website, which is www.tibond.com. I think you're going to enjoy the rest of the webinar today. We've been really excited to work with David and his colleagues at the Environmental Finance Center. This dashboard now sort of takes our survey to the next level and allows you to make adjustments and consider things such as affordability when you're looking at your rates. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy what David's about to present to you. And David, I will turn it back over to you at this point.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth. I really appreciate that, and thanks so much for sharing with us about your great rate survey and all the great data collection and analysis and services that Ty and Bond provides in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and a couple of the surrounding states too, I know. We will have an opportunity for all of you attendees today to ask questions of me and or Mary Beth Morris towards the end of the hour. But if you have questions now, please feel free to go ahead and type them in right now or any time during the hour into the chat box, the questions box, like I think Laura mentioned earlier. Also, I'd be delighted if any of you who are water systems, especially if you're a small water system serving 10,000 or fewer people, and I know some of you are on the webinar as attendees today, if you would type into the box to my colleague Laura that you'd like to volunteer, for System X, System Rocky Mount, North Carolina would be my hometown, that you'd like us to show your rates on the dashboard, because it gives us an opportunity to show all the attendees a real-life example of how the dashboard works and to provide a little bit of quick, free analysis to you of what we're seeing that we hope will be helpful. Also, it's an entree to further help that we can provide offline for those who are interested to the small systems through direct TAs, which I'll say more about in a moment. Our objectives for the webinar today are to help you to become familiar with the features and benefits of the new Massachusetts Residential Water and Wastewater Rates Dashboard, to learn how to compare one system's rates with those of other systems, but also how to do some just unique to your own system benchmarking, like one particular financial benchmark we'll talk about. And also, it's an opportunity for you to receive some free direct technical assistance, potentially starting today. That project doesn't fund TAs for the larger systems, but we want your questions too, and if there's some way we can help you too, we'll certainly explore that with you. As part of getting to know you, who's on the webinar today, my colleague Laura is going to launch a poll question for you on your screen now. She is going to ask you, as you can see, what kind of water utility do you represent? Are you a for-profit system, a municipality, a not-for-profit system, some kind of a special purpose district? Or I know that some of you are not here representing a utility. You're here with the US EPA or the state of Massachusetts government, or through a contractor or consulting firm. And so we're going to leave that up on your screen for a little bit, and then Laura's going to show us the answers.
All right, I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds, David.
Thank you kindly, Laura.
All right, there we go.
Excellent. And I can see that we've got quite a few of you here who are not representing a water or sewer utility, but about 25% of you who are a municipality and 8% who are a for-profit water and or wastewater system. So thank you for voting on that. I've got another get-to-know-you question, which is for those of you who are water systems, how big are you or how small are you by the number of people served, ranging from the very small to medium to large or very large. We've sort of consolidated these categories from ones used by US EPA in their Safe Drinking Water Information System, or SIDWIS. And of course, again, we know the number of you are not water or sewer utilities yourselves.
All right, just giving a couple more seconds. Let people.
Very good, very good.
All right, there we go.
All right, excellent. And it looks like for those of you who are water systems, we've got about 29% in that 3,300 to 10,000 people served range, and 7% a bit smaller than that, and 14% larger than that. So that's great to know about you. And almost skipped over the third polling question. So I think this polling question only lets you pick one when Laura launches it. And so we're curious, what utility management and finance topic are you most concerned about? I'd imagine probably a lot of you are concerned about more than one of these topics or interested in more than one of these topics. But if you pick the one, please, that kind of rises to the top, we'd love to see that from you. And again, this is for everybody who is on, not just the water systems. So we've got affordability, communication, conservation, cost recovery, and rate setting. A lot of very overlapping topics, to be sure. All right, and I think Laura will show us the results in just a moment here. So a lot of folks concerned about rate setting, you're in the right place. Also about conservation and communication, you're still in the right place. But there's really no wrong answer because our dashboard touches on all of these questions, as you'll see in just a minute. So thank you for that. Oh, there we go. So the wonderful rate survey conducted by Time Bond, completed, I think, in December of 2014, or at least completed in early 2015 with rates effective through December 2014. Was for residential water and wastewater rates in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, statewide survey, and approximately 290, maybe a little bit more than that, residential drinking water and or wastewater utilities were included. And using the CIDWIS database from US EPA, when you look up the service populations of those utilities and compare them against all community water systems in Massachusetts, recognizing that a number of those CWSs are not rate charging entities. They might be like a mobile home park or a school or something like that, that does not charge separate rates. But the dashboard covers roughly 67% of that total community water service population in the state. So a very nice 2/3 of the state. Great to have such a large majority there. And included in there are municipalities, I think the largest group, but also some special purpose districts and some for-profit companies and possibly some others as well. The rates dashboard is available through the EFC at UNC's website, where you can go there, and it's currently at the top of our page when you first dial in. You can also, because that area is dynamic on the website, you can search for Massachusetts Rates Dashboard. You can also access it through a link on Time Bond's website that Mary Beth was describing, where they post the results of their rate surveys. We've been in this business for a while. We've been doing rate surveys / rates dashboards ever since the late 90s, starting here in North Carolina, and with the help of different initiatives, including the EPA funding through the Small Systems Project. We created them for Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Illinois, Massachusetts, obviously, North Carolina, Ohio, Texas, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Canada, with several more coming this year. They're all free and online and open to the public, except the Canada one, actually. I think that one you have to be given a proprietary access through their program. And they compare a number of different things. They compare your rates against different utility finances, system characteristics, socioeconomic conditions of the customer base, geography, history, and so on. And you can compare to different baskets of utilities, ranging from ones with the same service population or similar water source, similar rate structure, etc. Now we're actually going to stop talking about the dashboard in the abstract, and we're going to show it to you in the concrete here. So I want to give a sort of general orientation to the dashboard here. Again, a reminder that if you are a water system, especially if you're a small water system who's on the webinar right now, please do type in that you'd like to see your system up here, which I'll ask Laura for that input in a little bit here. So what we have here is an online interactive benchmarking tool for the residential water and or sewer rates. Right now, if you look below the map of the state of Massachusetts, we're showing 245 rate structures for water. But if you look in the upper left and you go from water to sewer, now we're showing 188 unique sewer rate structures. And if you can click on the water and sewer bill combined, it's 146. Let's go back to water for a moment. Actually, if you hover over one of these blue dots on the map, it will, a little tricky, but it'll show you what you're pointing at, and then if you click on it, it's actually going to take you there. You can also use the scroll here to look for a system, and you can type in, and it will do a keyword search. But we're going to start first with some of the sort of imaginary made-up systems that we have here. We have a made-up example utility, and then we'll move to some concrete examples from real systems. We also have a slider here for the volume of consumption that you'd like to look at. We have it starting out at 7,500 gallons, but you can adjust it every 500 gallons from 0 gallons per month all the way up to 15,000 gallons per month. Now, as you saw in those great slides that Mary Beth had, we recognize that your utilities in Massachusetts have different kinds of billing periods. Some are quarterly, some are twice a year, and similarly, many of your utilities are selling the water service or the wastewater service denominated in hundreds of cubic feet instead of thousands of gallons. But we have consolidated everything here for apples-to-apples comparisons to thousands of gallons per month, although you also see the translation into cubic feet down here. So if you slide this all the way to 0, of course what you're essentially looking at is the base charge of the system. So here on the bill comparison dial, our made-up utility friends have a bill of $12.53 per month for water. For sewer, it's $15.32, and the combined bill is $27.85. And these color bands we've set up here to orient you to them. This darker green you see in the middle here, that's the middle 50% of the data. So at the lower end and the higher end of the dial, we've got these yellow bands. That's the lowest 10% of the rates and the highest 10% of the rates in the bucket we currently have selected, which is all utilities. And the light green are the shoulders, if you will, of 15% each. The median in this group is $8.75 at 0 gallons, but let's get it back up to that 7,500 range. You'll see the median grows for the combined bill to $110.74. And you also see the very lowest bill, the minimum, and the very highest bill, maximum, in the basket of utilities that's currently selected. And with this dial and all the other dials, if you click on the little blue question mark, a help box opens to try and orient you to the dial and what it's saying and what it does. Moving to the right, we have a conservation signal dial. This is a larger and more interesting topic than we'll have time for in this webinar, because we could do a whole webinar just on water conservation. And I know it's a topic of keen interest in Massachusetts from talking to some of your state officials there. We're working hard on this topic. So what we've done here is we've taken your pricing signal, your incremental price going from 10,000 to 11,000 gallons per month. And we have said, gosh, if we divide the data into 4 quarters, where does it fall? How weak or how strong of a price signal is being sent to the customer at this higher, more discretionary rate of usage of water? And in fact, let's not look at the combined water and sewer bill here. Let's just look at the water bill at the moment. And so what we see is that the $2.73, the incremental price here going from 10 to 11,000 gallons per month, it's in that lowest quarter, the dark yellow. If it were a bigger number, it might be in this dark green, the highest quarter, sending the strongest signal to the customer to say, are you really sure you need that next 11th, and then maybe after that, 12th and 13,000 gallons per month. So to raise awareness using the pricing signal about the scarcity of drinking water resource and the need to conserve it. Underneath that, another deep topic, affordability. Now, there's a lot of ways into this question of affordability, and what we've chosen to do here with this dial is to take a year of your, in this case, water bills, or if we switch to sewer bills, or combined bills, and then to divide that year of bills, going back to water now, by the median household income that we have done our best to approximate to what we believe to be your service territory. In fact, if you click on the next tab here, the Characteristics tab, you'll see pulling from the U.S. Census Bureau's 5-year American Community Survey, the MHI we have gotten for your community and how it compares to the statewide average for Massachusetts. So it's a good deal lower than that for our imaginary friends here. Also got the comparisons of the poverty rates. And so right now, these folks are paying 0.93% of that median household income for the water service. For the sewer service, they're paying 1.31%. So that takes them above this green band that ends at 1% here and into that yellow band that goes from 1 to 1.5%. And then for the water and sewer, you'll notice the bands just doubled because now we're looking at 2 services instead of 1. So the green band goes up to 2% instead of 1. And then the yellow band up to 3% instead of 1.5%. Now, we often get asked, is this based on some hard and fast standard that you really absolutely must adhere to from this or that government agency or whatnot? And the answer is no, not really. I mean, we've done our research on what different funders look at and different regulators look at for different kinds of things. And this is just a starting point to this conversation of for your median customer, the one who is in the middle between the higher 50 and the lower 50% of the income data, does the bill look pretty affordable for them? Is there a low cause concern, or is there maybe a pretty significant or growing cause of concern? And in this help box here, we describe what I've just broken down to you. There's also a pointer to a blog post. We have a very active blog at the UNC-EFC's website by my colleague Shadi Eskoff that talks about the percent MHI indicator and its pluses and minuses and how to use it. And now we've got another big question of cost recovery. I'm going to switch to another one of our made-up utilities here and their rate structure. So this is for one that has low rates. You'll see that bill comparison dial just dipped a lot lower there. But they've also got very low operating revenue. So cost recovery, in this case, the way we're looking at it is from your annual financial reports, your operating revenue divided by your operating expenses, including depreciation. Now, as it happens, while we've been able to take the great rates data from Time Bond Survey, we've been able to match it up with geospatial data from U.S. Geological Survey, with the MHI data and other data from the Census Bureau, data from the EPA, from the CIDWIS database. We haven't yet found a handy-dandy source all rolled up into a nice spreadsheet of that kind of cost recovery data, operating revenue, and expense data. So when we go to one of the actual utilities, you're going to see that dial is blank, but I'm going to show you how you can turn it on locally on your machine. And we'll do that in a moment. So here, these folks, they're only from their revenue from their rates. They're only bringing into their Water Sewer Enterprise Fund 0.54 of all of their operating and maintenance expenses plus depreciation. And we include depreciation there because it's a proxy. It's a proxy for the capital needs that you're certainly going to have for your system across time. Of course, if you are a utility that already is really on top of that and you've got a great capital improvement plan in place, you're socking away money into your capital improvement fund and so on, you might not be as motivated to look at it that way, but we see so many utilities that really are just struggling to get by around the country, so they're really not necessarily covering the depreciation, and that's going to catch up with them eventually one day in the form of system failures potentially. So if you break even at 1 here, that's good. But to start into this green territory, to get past the yellow at 1.2 there, it's our way of saying if you're actually taking in another 20% in revenue from your rates, that's helping you to put in that additional money across time, even on top of depreciation, to prepare to have some cash for capital projects, to deal with the fact that things that you bought 20, 25, 30 years ago typically cost a good deal more now to replace them, deal with potential system expansion needs and things of that nature. If you see, like these folks here who look to be in a good deal of financial trouble, that you might need some kind of a rate increase. Of course, you may also want to look at the cost reduction side on energy management or water loss reduction or other things that we can talk to you more about, small system. You can use this slider here to simulate a rate increase going up to 100% all at once. Now this is a bit of a sledgehammer approach because I think for most of you, your customers, if you raise their rates 50 or 75 or 100% all at once, you'd have some mighty angry customers on your hands. So hopefully you're more in the habit already of doing an annual review and a study of your rates, and as needed, doing more gradual, stepwise rate increases, perhaps every year, perhaps every other year as circumstances dictate. You'll notice these little shadows here on the dials. Those are not mistakes. That's where you started from before you slid the rate increase slider up. And this, the darker needle is where you've ended up now. And in fact, these folks, even if they raised their rates by 100%, they still wouldn't get to 1.0. One of the reasons for that is we have included a starting point in the conversation for the elasticity of demand, which is my fancy schmancy way of saying typically when stuff costs more, people buy less of it. So we programmed in, as you see with this caution box on the left, for every 10% increase in the price, a 3% drop in the demand. So for a 100% increase, a 30% drop in the demand is modeled here. Now in real life, those of you who are doing the hard and noble work of running your water and sewer utilities every day, day in and day out, and managing them, you're going to know your customer base better than we do, and so you might actually think, you know, it's going to be more like a 2 or 1% or 4 or 5% increase. We also have other tools available for free on the EFC's website. We have an affordability assessment tool that's Excel-based. We have a water and sewer rates model that allows you to model this in a much more sophisticated way about a rate increase. I can say about more later if people are interested when we get to Q&A. But let's go back to before we mess around with the rate slider here. On the characteristics tab, we provide a few vital statistics here, and one of your largest cities and systems, I'm just going to put Boston up here for a moment so you can see we're telling you they're a municipal system and pulling from CIDWIS the estimated number of accounts and service population. I do know that sometimes that CIDWIS database, there can be a lag of a few years from the source of the data that the EPA has collected it from and told today. And so some of you may find one of your systems, I know, has already contacted me about this, may find that you have more current data on your number of accounts and service population. If so, you can send that to me, and at our next update of the dashboard, we'll put that in there. Again, the MHI is here, the poverty rate, the average household size, also taken from the Census Bureau. On the links tab, we've got some description of the project. We've got this little red button here. If you click that, it'll start an email message to yours truly, the architect of this dashboard. We've got links to our other states' dashboards that we've done and EPA, and also to Ty and Bond's great water sewer rates survey. Actually going to have their logo on here for the next edition of the dashboard, and Massachusetts DEP's drinking water program, and the small systems project that I've kept talking about. Now, one more thing to show you about this, this rates dashboard before we start getting some volunteers up here and some questions for me and possibly for Mary Beth as well. Right now, the cost recovery dial, as I said, doesn't have financial data behind it because we haven't found a source for that yet. But you could be sitting at your computer here, and you could have your certified audited financial report, your latest one available, open to you next to you on the desk. And you could click here on Edit Data or Add Utility. And this will allow you temporarily, only on your own computer. It's not going to write to our database. We might explore that in the future, but it's just going to be on your own computer locally until you clear your cookies. You can input a new utility from scratch. You can click on Create a New Utility, or you can clone the existing one. So if we clone Boston here, and let's pretend we're going to use completely arbitrary numbers that I do not have from the folks in Boston or anywhere else, but we're going to put in imaginary numbers for the annual operating revenues and the annual operating expenses, including depreciation. And we can click Save here. You can also change the other data here for the bills for the MHI. We're going to click Save, and then you see it's turned this dial on here. And using the dashboard as a communication tool, if you're professional staff to with your governing board, or if your staff or governing board talking with your ratepayers, with your customers, or whoever it is you're communicating with, this would allow you then to give an even fuller picture, and you can show it as is. You can take a screenshot of it and save it. That kind of thing can be very helpful. And by the way, if any of you have a suggestion for a financial database that's already rolled up very nicely in Massachusetts that I'm not aware of, I know I've talked to some of you who are on the call here already, but if any of the rest of you have a notion, let me know in case I'm missing something about that. So that's kind of the long and the short of it for how our powerful new dashboard tool works for Massachusetts. It allows you to see, the sort of tug of war between different utilities here. With this imaginary one for affordability, for example, it allows you to see that they've got high rates and it's a high percentage of MHI, and you can always click on the characteristics tab and you see, well, of course it's a high percentage because their MHI is a lot lower than the state average. So let me pause now and ask you, Laura, do we have any volunteers yet from the systems, and do we have any questions yet from the webinar attendees?
Yeah, well, there was someone that would like to see this dashboard in action with Concord.
With Concord.
Yes.
Okay. All righty, we will bring up Concord. I'll also ask while I'm bringing up Concord, I think I saw Groton and Whitensville, who are small systems, had registered and I think are in attendance here. So if you would like to be shown up there, I'd love to have the opportunity to show your stuff and talk about it a little bit. So here what we see for the town of Concord is they do have water service. Click on sewer. Also provides sewer service. We can look at the combined bill. And while I'm talking here, I'll ask the folks who are on the webinar from the town of Concord if you can type in to Laura what your most typical, if you can think of it this way, in a monthly equivalent, because I know a lot of you are billing quarterly, but what your most typical monthly equivalent would be in either thousands of gallons or in cubic feet. We can adjust the slider right now because maybe it's not 7,500. Maybe it's something lower than that or higher than that. And I'll ask any other volunteers to type that into your request to Laura too. But until Laura interrupts me and tells me what that is, I'm going to start with this. So it looks like the bill is very close to the median in the Commonwealth. And that's looking at, go ahead, Laura.
So we just got an answer. It's 6,000 gallons per month.
Oh, very good. Thank you all for providing that, Groton, and slide it down to 6,000 there. So the bill is still very close to the median, 36.82 per month as opposed to 33.83 median. And this is looking at all utilities. This also allows me to show you a feature of the dashboard I couldn't really show you with the made-up examples, which is we have comparison groups. So you can look at a similar number of accounts, and with each comparison group, the dials may move around a little bit. You'll see fewer dots on the map, because this is looking at folks from 3,000 to 10,000 accounts. Same water planning region, same watershed, the Concord watershed, same water source in terms of how you're being regulated by EPA under the Safe Drinking Water Act, so a surface water system here. Same congressional district, if that's of any interest. Same ownership type, so here's among all of the municipalities. And also same customer income, that's those MHI bands we were talking about. This is over 60,000 and within 20 or 50 miles distance. But look back to all utilities here, the biggest bucket. Looks like you're sending a strong conservation signal in the top quartile to your customers for water, and so really helping with the pricing signal to advance that cause of conserving safe, scarce drinking water. And yet you're maintaining very good affordability here for your customers, your median customers. Wow. It probably helps having an MHI that looks like it's a good deal higher than the statewide average. Let's look at the sewer bill also. And we'll peg that to 6,000 gallons unless I hear differently from y'all. It's higher. We often see at various places around the country the sewer bills are higher than the water bills. And affordability, though, is still in very good shape. And with the combination of the two, we're seeing the bill comparison is in that kind of shoulder 15% of the data there. If you happen to know off the top of your head, even approximately, what your water and sewer enterprise funds, assuming you have a combined fund, what your operating revenues and operating expenses, including depreciation, are, you could tell that to Laura, and I could type it in here.
All right.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Laura.
So for the operating revenue,
Okay.
4,945,876.
876.
And then
Okay.
for operating expense is 3,478,932.
Somebody came prepared. I'm impressed. All right.
We want you to know that's for water only.
And that's for water only, so let's look at just the water bill here. Thank you for that. And so if that is, in fact, including depreciation in the operating expenses, then a very healthy looking operating ratio. So hopefully that's helping you to put some money into your capital improvement fund on a regular basis as you prepare for inevitable long-term capital needs for your system. All right, well, thanks. That was a great example to put up there. Do we have any other volunteers, Laura, including from the small systems?
Yeah, so we have one other. First, they have a question. Will the dashboard work with dual rates ascending? They asked to try Southampton.
Okay, I'll bring up Southampton, town of Southampton. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the question part, Laura?
Will the dashboard work with dual rates ascending?
With dual rates ascending. Not sure what that means. If you can expand on that question to Laura there, or Mary Beth, since you're an in-state expert there, do you have any insight on what's meant by dual rate ascending?
No, maybe perhaps water and sewer. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I do know that whether it's an ascending or inclining block rate that underlies things here, or uniform rate, or flat fee, or whatever it is, we've been able to take that data that's been captured very well from the survey that Time Bond did, and to program that into the database that underlies this dashboard. So regardless of the type of volumetric rate structure, that is, being calculated on that basis, on the basis of the base charge, on the basis of any consumption allowance that may be included with the base charge, and so on. That's also taken into account when using the rate slider here. Laura, do we have a little more on the question yet from the questioner?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep talking, and then you interrupt me if we get more on that. So for Southampton, we see they've got some pretty darn low rates here, $21 per month for water, in that bottom 10% of all utilities in the survey group. Looks like they only provide water service, not sewer service. They're sending a pricing signal going from that 10 to 11,000 gallons per month of water that's in that second from the bottom quartile. So not the weakest, not the strongest pricing signal in that regard. Affordability for the median customer looks very good, only 0.32%. And again, we have an MHI that is a fair amount higher than the statewide average, which helps.
And David, we have a little more information. It looks like they have $42 base charge for 12 gallons.
$42 base charge for 12 gallons. So maybe they offer like two different rate structures, one to some of their customers and another to other customers. Because what we got from Time Bond Survey was that it was $14 per month. I bet they bill quarterly, because 42 divided by 3 is 14. So here's probably we've just standardized it to the per month instead of the per quarter variety.
And it looks like, and then it looks like the more information you provided was then it's also $3.50 for 12 to 24,000 gallons.
Right. And all of that should already be included in the survey data. Did they type in what volumetric amount they wanted me to use here, Laura?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. But in general, minus the cost recovery data, this is a system that looks to be in pretty good shape. If you have your CAFR in front of you, you're welcome to tell us what those numbers are. Did we have any of the small systems volunteer? Laura, are they all being shy today?
They're being shy today. No small systems yet.
All right. Well, if you guys change your mind, we've still got a little time left here. And I should emphasize that, when we demonstrate volunteer systems here, we're certainly not trying to put anyone on the spot. We're just trying to be helpful. And we know that smaller systems often don't have the same level of resources and capacity that the larger systems do. And that's what we're here for, is to help. The direct technical assistance that's available through the Small Water Systems Project allows us to provide up to 20 hours of our network's time from our group of EFCs, no charge to you, to help you with any of those topics we were showing you earlier, ranging from rate setting to capital planning, energy management, asset management, and so on. We would need a little of your time to talk to you on the phone or by email and get a sense of what your issue is and get some data from you, work with you on our rate setting Excel tool or our affordability assessment tool or our capital planning tool or other tools that we can bring to bear here. I have a few more slides I want to show, and Laura and I have a few more questions we're going to ask you to help us with. But before I do that, is there any more cue for me or for Mary Beth, Laura?
Yes. So this is for the town of the same person that had you do the town of Southampton. They're asking, how do you get average water usage when summer quarter represents 40% of annual income?
I'm sorry, how do you get annual water usage when some...
How do you get average water usage when summer quarter represents 40% of annual income?
I see what you're saying. Let me say two things about that. The first is that, this dashboard, because there is seasonal variation for you guys, you could slide it, the volumetric slider, one way to look at one picture for one time of the year, another for another picture for another time of the year. But I know that that Mary Beth and Time Bond, they have done their best to, as part of their survey, characterize a standardized, average water usage, average household water usage. So in their survey, Mary Beth, did you want to speak at all to this questioner's question?
If somebody had reported having seasonal rates, or that they use a certain percentage for a summer bill, we did take that into account in our calculations of the average annual homeowner's cost.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at Southampton's data, and I don't think I had that information reported to us. We had the base charge and then the two block rates. The first one was, $3.50 per 1,000 gallons up to 24,000, and then it was $5 per 1,000 gallon over that. But I did not have any. I don't believe we had any seasonal impacts in that particular calculation for the 2014 survey.
Right. Thank you, Mary Beth. I hope that answers the questioner from Southampton. And also, if your rate just changed, yesterday, because it's been a few months since the survey was completed by Mary Beth's group, you can always go into the edit data and add utility function and clone yourself, and then adjust your rate numbers there, bearing in mind that at that point you might be creating more of an apples to oranges comparison against other systems. But those measurements that are unique to your own system, the affordability percentage, the cost recovery data, if you can put that in from your financial report, that's just going to be internally logically consistent there, happily. Well, I know we don't have very much time left, so if there are any more questions, they will get passed on to me and, as appropriate, to Mary Beth by Laura offline, and we are going to have an opportunity to respond to you offline. I'm going to get back to our slides right now. And thank you to those two systems that did volunteer. We really appreciate it to show you up on the screen. Want to make sure you're aware of other resources that we offer. We have a very active blog at the EFC here about water finance, wastewater finance, energy finance, and other topics, stormwater finance. We also have the project website for the Small Homes Project of the EFC network, and we have our own Twitter page here at our EFC. The video recording and the slides from this webinar will be made available through our website and the project website subsequently. And if you'd like to be subscribed to the EFC's blog, Laura's launching that polling question right now. This is not one we're going to display the results of to everybody. We are happy to have more folks join our blog. It's very active. We post at least once a week, every week during the year. We don't sell your, email address to anybody for anything. We just put it into the blog subscription. And that's probably enough time for that now, I would think. And the next question is, I mentioned the direct technical assistance under the Small Systems Project. You can request it at that link there you see at the bottom of that slide, or you can respond to this polling question right now about yes or no, or you're still not quite sure what we mean by it and would like more details. Again, you need to be a small system serving 10,000 or fewer people. We've really enjoyed working with some great small systems around the country on a lot of different kinds of issues. It's a big part of what we do with this project, and we especially enjoy working with smaller systems, though we'll also talk to you, if you're a big system, about how we could find a way to fund helping you out some too. All right, well, I think we've got enough time for responses there. Is there any last-minute question that has come? Oh, yes, the survey, right. You should see pushed out to you in a window right now by my colleague Laura a link that will take you to a survey we'd love to have you take to say what you thought of the webinar today, get your feedback on it so we can continue to innovate and improve with our webinars. If you don't have time for that right now, that's okay, because it's also going to be in the email that you're going to get later on this week to point you to the slide presentation and the video recording. Do we have any other last-minute questions or comments, Laura, or from you, Mary Beth?
Yeah, there's a couple last questions. One of the quick ones are, what are your plans to update the data in the future, or will this be set in 2015?
Well, we do have some notions about that, because we like to keep the dashboards updated with fresh data so they can continue to be as useful as possible to the people who are making the rate-setting decisions at the local utilities, and also to their counterparts at state-level agencies and anyone who uses the dashboard. And I'm going to be talking further with Mary Beth and her wonderful colleagues at Ty and Bond about how we can work together to each time they update the survey, every other year, that we could work with them on a contract to update the dashboard. So that's a conversation that's still ongoing there, but I'm hopeful that that is indeed going to materialize going forward. Any other last-minute question, Laura? I think we've got like less than a minute now.
I think we're all set.
Very good. Well, let me take this opportunity to say thank you very much to all of you who have attended the webinar. Thank you very much, Mary Beth, to you for taking your time to be on the webinar today, and to you and your colleagues for all the great work that you do in Massachusetts, and to you, Laura, for your help today as well.